Welcome back to EDI Sports Show. I'm your host, Doc Schwartz, and this week what I'm going to do is go into some of my most controversial comments that I've gotten, as well as some of the most insightful and smart comments that you guys have been giving me over the last few weeks. If you're new to this channel, welcome aboard. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, hit it right now. Well, let's get into the most, controversial comment that I have gotten. And the reason that I say it's controversial is because a lot of people make the same comment, and it comes back every single week by at least one person, and so I want to go over it now. So this is what it is. So here we go. This is what he says. Cards, unfortunately, are valued by the hype the person gives it. You have a lot of followers and fame when you can name your price. Cards should be valued by top sales popularity due to condition rarity. Unfortunately, many sell at desperate or have no card value or no clue value. I'm sure. I guess what he's saying is that you don't know what they're worth. All right. Then the flippers are out to sell as many cards as fast as they can instead of selling at the best time for value. P.S. I have the first one-of-one Herbert rookie card by Panini. The card is worth what a person. I'm going to try to read this sentence. The card is worth what the most a person is willing to pay for it. Now, here I'm going to give you the comment underneath it because I sometimes think these are awesome. So here you go. This is what Vintage Collector said in response to that. So if the most someone offered you was $1, then your card is now worth $1. And I think that that's the best response to what this person said. I'm going to get into what my comment is and my reply, but I want to show you that I get this comment all the time, which is why I made it the first most controversial thing. So here's someone else. This is Greg B. 2. So I am double commenting. LOL. The card should be priced by two factors: what the seller is willing to accept and the buyer is willing to pay. If you need to move the card, then selling it lower makes sense. If you're good with holding the card, then it's okay to wait for the price you want. Here we go. I'm just going to get into this since a lot of you just don't seem to understand how cards get priced. And this comes back over and over again. And again, I've been accused of talking to my audience like they're 5-year-olds. Again, most of you are not. 99% of the people watching this get exactly what I'm saying, but there's a few of you who just don't understand. And I don't think it has anything to do with your intelligence. I think you're just stubborn. I think you want to believe things are a certain way, and when I tell you that they're not, that they're a different way, you're just literally going, no, you must be wrong. So here's what you need to understand, and you don't need a degree in economics to get this. A market is, yes, what someone is willing to buy, what you're trying to sell. That's a market. The problem is that when you're trying to price something, it depends on demand. And if you don't add demand to the equation, then you don't know what you're doing. And that's the bottom line. It's got nothing to do with the top sales, and it's got to do with demand. Sometimes, like in the case of the person who has the one-of-one, well, there's only one card, so sales don't matter. There's only one of them. The question is there demand for that card? And if there's demand, then you can say, I want to charge X amount. And then people, again, demand. You need more than one buyer in order to command the price. If there's only one person that wants your card, then you really don't have much negotiating power. You are at the mercy of the buyer. Now, you can see this in the real estate market much more clearly than in the sports car market because there's transparency in the real estate market. Not as much as in stocks and bonds, which are, you have to be completely transparent. But in real estate, there's more transparency. We actually could use the type of transparency that the real estate market has. And here's what I talk about. Here's what I mean by transparency. After a house sells and you go through closing, that price is then registered with the state. Yes, your sale price after you officially legally close, your sale price is registered with the state. Here's the problem with the sports card market. There is no registry of sales. Yes, we can go to eBay and look at past sales. Yes, but that's not the entire market. And not only that, but eBay does not disclose when you put a buy it offer, a make an offer buy, it just crosses out what the original price was. You have to then go to 130 point and hope to find the correct sale of that card, which then is a more accurate number as to what it is. But here's the problem. It's not that transparent. What about all of the auctions? What about all of the other places you can sell? What about private sales? Every single real estate transaction, whether it's a private sale, whether it's cash, whether it's a mortgage, must be registered with the state. We don't have that in the sports card market. Therefore, you don't always know what people are paying for cards. And you might be selling a card for X amount, but somebody privately is buying it for less. And that's the problem. So again, I understand where this confusion comes from. It's only worth what someone will pay for it. That's not true. That's what you can sell it for. But that doesn't necessarily mean what the card is actually worth. You may be selling the card for less than what it's worth. Now that's your choice. I have sold plenty of cards for less than what they're worth, and I've gotten skewered on this channel for doing that. People are like, why did you do that? Why did you sell the card for less than it's worth? And it's like, folks, you have to take your own situation and figure out what you want to do. My situation for the last basically decade has been trying to get rid of a hoard. I had 8 million cards. I was not concerned with getting top dollar. And I know that kind of upsets a lot of you. You're like, well, why wouldn't you get top dollar? Because I wanted to move a lot of cards. And if I wait to get top dollar, I can't do that. My stress was 8 million cards, not how much value I can get for them. I wanted to get as much value as I could, which meant that I had to actually know what the cards were worth. So I had to do a lot of research to figure out, okay, well, what is this worth? Because then when dealers would give me offers, I could know, all right, that's a reasonable offer. If somebody was trying to give me 10 or 20 cents on the dollar, then I'm like, yeah, that's too low. It's worth X. You're trying to give me 20% what it's worth. I need more than that. And some dealers were like, okay, I'll make you a reasonable offer. And they did. And I accepted those reasonable offers. Some people were like, no, I'm going to give you 20 cents. If you want it, take it. If you don't, fine by me. And I'm like, okay, I say no. There's no deal there. And it's fine to walk away from a deal. I don't know if everybody understands that. I'm not telling you that you have to take lowball offers, but you need to know what you're trying to accomplish. I'm at the last stage. I honestly cannot believe that I'm at the last stage of consolidating my hoard into a collection. You saw last week, I put it out on a table. I have 2 cases and a bunch of bins that I bought at Walmart, okay? And I just put them together. I was like, all right, these are going to be the hockey cards, these are going to be the basketball cards, and these are going to be the football cards. And I did the bins in order to limit the number of cards I was keeping. Because the tendency when you have a hoard is to keep everything. That's the tendency. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to have physical limitations. So my bins physically limit the number of cards that I can keep. I want to keep more cards. I can't. I can't physically fit them into that bin. And trust me, I have loaded the hockey bin as much as I possibly can. You guys saw that last week. The bin for hockey cards is getting close to overflowing because I have a problem. I keep a lot of cards. But it is much less. Again, you saw it. It's probably around 1,000 cards at this point that I'm keeping. I still have plenty to go. We'll get to that. Let's get to the next comment. Here we go. This is from USA Cards, who I think probably is my biggest fan, even though he hates my guts. But I want to thank USA Cards for always making a comment because they're really entertaining. Sometimes they're really good. All right, so here we go. This is what USA Cards has to say. Did you have cards stolen or did you lose your case? Also, how are you going to tell people how to sell cards when you said you didn't want to grade your Ted Williams, especially when the next guy would make thousands just by sending it in? You didn't want to put out money to make money. Make that make sense. All right, so here is the bottom line answer on this question. So obviously, USA Cards, you are highly suspicious of me. You think that I'm trying to ruin people's lives, which is why you have such a negative attitude. But here you go. Here's the honesty. PSA takes forever to grade cards. And unfortunately, if I wanted to get top dollar for the 1939 play ball Ted Williams, I would have to send it into PSA. Here's the reality. I then can't sell that card quickly. So my goal was to try to get a couple grand for that card, cash, so that I can start putting cash together to buy some of the more expensive cards that I want to buy, which I had dealers who had the cards and were willing to deal with me. So it was a timing situation. I wanted to get the money from another card that I didn't care about. Again, I wasn't keeping the 39 rookie card. And so I could employ that cash to a card that I wanted. And I didn't have all the time in the world. The dealer was willing to deal with me right then and there. And so I had to figure out, how am I going to get the cash to pay for it? Now, because I'm working with dealers that are local to me, and they're nice people and they know I'm a nice person. So we trade contact information. And they literally said to me, look, if I don't sell it at this show, you have a week. You have a week to figure out how to get the money, because then the offer's off the table, which is very reasonable, and I appreciate that. Giving me a price that lasts for a week is a nice thing to do. I mean, talk about what a community is all about. It's not indefinite. It's not like they're giving me a quote that lasts forever and I have 6 months to figure out how to pay for it. No. They gave me a week, and then they're going to try to sell the card to anyone who wants it. Okay, great. I love it. Thank you. But that means that I need to sell some cards. And my most expensive card, the one that's the most valuable at the time, was the 1939 Ted Williams rookie card. Now, in hindsight, I did not think that I was going to get it stolen. And yes, it turns out that it was stolen. There is a police report with the Phoenix Police Department. There's an investigation. There may be a crime ring going on. This is interstate because the people that stole the cards sold it then in Texas. So they crossed state lines, sold the cards. They ended up on an auction site. This story gets interesting. So the question that I have right now with law enforcement is, has this been referred to the FBI? Because once you cross state lines, this becomes a crime, a felony. It's not just petty theft, which is what it was in the state of Arizona. This is now a felony. It is interstate commerce. They have now broken federal law. It gets even worse than that, but again, I don't want to get into it right now. But that's the answer to the question. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's get to the next comment. Here we go. This is James Schlesinger, 1976. He says the 10 cards you had in the bag would sell at $10 to $20, I am guessing. Now, I'm not going to go into what that bag was. That's not important. What's important is I actually thought, wait a minute, this might be a really good idea. So what I did is I actually took out 10 cards and I'm going to show them to you, and I want you to tell me what you think they're worth. instead of me telling you what I would sell it for, why don't you guys tell me what you think it's worth? Okay? So here we go. We're going to do the 10 cards. Now, they're a combo. There's some vintage and some modern. All right? So here we go. We got a Chrome Mike Trout. We've got an auto Reed Detmer rookie. That's a blue. We've got a Trae Young rookie. We've got a Thurman Munson 78. We've got a Ryan Sandberg rookie. That's a Fleer. We've got a Jacob deGrom rookie. That's a Bowman. We've got a Dale Murphy rookie. That's 1978, I believe. Yeah, 1978. We've got a Rod Carew, second year. We've got a Brooks Robinson. That's a 76. And then we've got a Nolan Ryan special insert from the 90 Donruss set. Okay, so you got those 10 cards. You tell me in the comments, what do you think those cards are worth together? If you were going to buy them, what would you pay for them? What do you think it's worth? And what would you pay for them? Let's get to the next comment. Here we go. Now this one is a string. Because again, I love that my followers, my subscribers, I don't know what you guys want to call me, my audience, I love that you actually read the comments yourself. And I love that you are communicating with other people in the community. Because some of these comments deserve other comments. Sometimes when you guys make comments, you need to hear from other people. You're saying, this is what I think, and you guys need to start going into the comments and reading what people say and then responding to them. You know, I'm not the only one on this channel. Actually, you have an audience that is really engaged and making good comments. So here we go. Let's get to this one. So this is from Sam, and he says 1986 Fleer basketball was junk wax. 100% correct. We are on the same page there. Thus, there is a ton of it out there, hence there will be many more Jordan PSA 10s in the future. That is, if PSA is not purposely controlling the pop count, which has been an alleged thing. Like there has been allegations that PSA purposely manipulates the pop count. I don't know, I don't have evidence, I don't have proof of that, but that is an allegation. All right, we'll get to the following response, which is, do you think these Jordans are still in unopened boxes, or are they cards that haven't been submitted to PSA? Then the following comment from the original poster is both, but more so unopened. I agree with what Sam is saying, absolutely. So then let's go to the next follow-up comment. This is what he said. I'm surprised there's a lot of people that have these junk wax 86 Fleer boxes sitting around in their closet next to some 88 Donruss boxes. Yeah, I had all of this stuff. I did not have 86 Fleer basketball because, again, I was not a huge basketball fan back in the day. Just not. Like, yeah, I watched basketball. Yes, I watched the playoffs and the finals every year, but I was not a huge basketball fan. It's still not today either. I'm definitely baseball, hockey, football. That's sort of my choice. To be honest, hockey's flipped. I'm more hockey fan now than baseball fan. But if I was to choose which sports to watch, I would definitely pick hockey first, baseball second, and then go to football. Beauty about football is only once a week. And when your team's out, because my team is the Giants, they're out, they suck. You don't have to watch anymore. They suck. I mean, they're horrible. And that's just the beauty of football, is by week 7 or 8, you know whether or not you have to invest any time in the team. It's over. It's done. Who cares? I'm waiting for the playoffs, and then I watch the Super Bowl. That's just who I am as a fan. But when you have baseball and hockey, you have to really invest your time in those teams because the seasons are so long. Like, baseball's 162 games. Hockey's 82 games. This isn't over in a couple weeks. Like, there's months and months and months of the season. So you really have to invest your time, and that's kind of why I think I like the sports, because you can kind of watch and, one game they lose and you're like, oh, all right, whatever. Like the Mets last year were horrible in April and May, and then they turned it around and actually made it to the National League Championship Series. Who knew? Like, again, not the way they started the season, but that's the point, is baseball is a long year. Anyway, let's get to the follow-up. Do you think the print runs for the 86 Fleer basketball were the same as the junk wax baseball? And the response is yes, quite similar. I remember you could buy these packs at convenience stores, thus they were mass-produced. Okay, you're assuming a lot of people have 100,000 plus boxes of 86 in their closet because you saw them for sale. I think the prices of boxes would drop low now with so many around, but I bet there's a lot of people with a 400K first edition boxes in the closets too. Those things were mass produced. All right, so the reason that I brought this up is because there's been a lot of controversy about my comments about the 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card, the 89 or the 88 Fleer Greg Jeffries card, which you saw there was a video, the $50,000 mistake, and then obviously the 86 Fleer Jordan. So what needs to be said across the board is that all of these cards were mass produced. Now, I don't agree with the fact that the numbers of 86 Jordans are similar to the number of 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey cards. I do not believe that. I think that is not accurate. There is estimates, again, no transparency, but there are estimates that there are 4 million 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey rookie cards out there. That's the estimate of how many were actually printed. To be honest with you, I think that's a good estimate, since I would open up cases of 89 Upper Deck back in the day, and there were around 20 Ken Griffeys per box. So if you buy a box of sealed Upper Deck Upper Deck, you can expect anywhere from 10 to 20 Ken Griffeys in that box. So do the math. So if a box is going for, let's say $300 to $400, and you can sell Ken Griffey raw, ungraded, for about $40, $45, just, without any issue, because it's worth around between $50 to $70 depending on the day. But you could sell it for $40 to $45 without a problem for cash. So if you can get 10, that's $450. So is it worth it to buy the box at that point? Not really. Again, the box is worth more than what the cards are worth. But if there's 20 in there, well, then then the box is worth around $800 to $850 on Ken Griffey's alone. At that point, maybe it is worth buying the entire box. Now, people have tried to do revisionist history with me and telling me that I don't know what I did. Yes, I have said that I had bought 89 Upper Deck cases for $200. Yes, that is true. I didn't buy a lot of them, but yes, I bought one. Actually, I bought one case for $200. I bought another one for $250. Bought another one for like $325. But they're typically around $300 to $350 per case. That's what they were going for, again, back in the day. And honestly, 30 years ago, that's a lot of money. Like, I don't know about you, but that's not like nothing back in the day. People were not making the kind of money that they're making today. Again, inflation makes a big difference. So you got to understand that back then, when there wasn't this hyperinflation and that $300 or $400 was considered a lot of money, it was a lot of money. Just also be aware that even though that the 52 SGC 9.5, the Al Rosen card, the most perfect Mickey Mantle he's ever seen, that sold for $50,000 back in the 90s. That's that card that sold for 12.6 million. That was bought for around $50,000. Again, $50,000 way back then was a ton of money. And I know that because my father actually talked to Mr. Rosen about buying that card. And I told my dad, do not buy it. You're going to get divorced. Thankfully, he didn't do that. Thankfully, he didn't get divorced. And I know what you're saying. What do you mean, thankfully? You would have a card that's worth $12.6 million, or you would have been able to make $12.6 million. I understand what you're saying in hindsight. And even in hindsight, I'm telling you, I'm so glad he never bought that card. Because the problem is that you never know. And you can't make those kinds of gambles in your life. My dad didn't have $50,000 to waste, and so that's not a smart idea. If you have $50,000 to waste, then yeah, absolutely. It's not that big a gamble. You're like, yeah, I'll buy it. Okay. And that's kind of what's happening now in the sports card hobby is you have a lot of people who have a lot of money to waste, like a Jeff Wilson. He just has money to burn. And so he's willing to take a gamble on a lot of these cards. The problem is he's wrong 99% of the time. If I were advising him, I would tell him, stop doing that. Stop spending money on gambles. You're better off just actually gambling with that money. You would actually make more money and then use the winnings from your gambling to buy sports cards that you actually want. But he's chasing FOMO, and you guys are chasing FOMO. Well, not my core audience. My core audience are real collectors, so you guys know and understand. I hope that everybody that's watching this understands when I say things, if I'm saying what you agree with, then just say, yes, I agree, and here's my experience. Because we're on the same page. Only people that are stubborn hear me and go, I agree, why are you telling me that? I mean, do you guys not get that this is YouTube? You're not the only ones watching YouTube. There are people who don't know what's going on. They're on YouTube. I have 2,000 subscribers. YouTube reaches 1 billion people. You're not the only people in the world. I don't know why I need to explain that, but I'm trying to reach a broader audience. In order to do that, I have to speak sometimes things that you already know. All right, let's get to the next comment. This one's from Sean John. So he says, thanks for the content. I enjoyed the episode. I started the hobby in 1994. That's when the Rangers won the Cup. Then left for a while and returned in 2021. I've been trying to sell a Patrick Mahomes rated rookie pink on eBay for a while. There are comps from 900 to 1,000. I keep getting bids for 800. If there are a few comps for the same amount, wouldn't that be its worth? Thanks for what you do. All right. So Sean John, see, that's a great question because this comes back to, again, the most controversial comment that I get, which is what are cards worth? How do you price the cards? So what you're talking about is sales comps. Totally understand. So you're saying that the comps are from 900 to 1,000. Here's what you really need to figure out. What's the card actually worth? Yes, the comps are good to start with, going, okay, what is it selling for? Great. Now you have to take that information and start to go, what is it actually worth? And that's when you have to see, okay, what is the demand? Is the demand high for this card? Like, are people, anytime the card goes on the market, is it selling real quick? Is there a high demand for the card? If there is, then yes, absolutely. I would say wait to get $900 to $1,000 because there's high demand. Absolutely. If there's not high demand and you're only getting one offer at $800, I would start to reconsider how much you think the card is actually worth. Now, here's the second piece of this. I'm going to make this very clear. Do you want the card or do you not want the card? Like, is that a PC card? Is that in your keep pile or is that in your sell pile? Because if in your sell pile, then the question is you just need to know what the card's worth right now and sell it. That's it. Don't look back. Don't have regrets. Don't go, oh, I wish I could keep it and maybe it'll go up. That's the wrong attitude. Sell it now for what it's worth. Now, if it's worth $900, $800 is a good price. Maybe you can negotiate up 825. Again, somewhere in the 8s, I think is a really good offer. If it's worth 900, if it's worth 1,000, then yeah, maybe you need to come back with, well, I think it's worth 1,000. Are you willing to come up a little bit? And maybe the person says, okay, I'll give you 850. Again, it's a reasonable offer. You have to make a choice whether or not you want it or you don't want the offer. But it's based on if the card is actually worth $1,000, then it's not that bad an offer. And that's what I hope you understand. But you have to really separate out your keep stuff from your sell stuff. And the sell stuff you should sell. Don't hold on to sell stuff with the hope of something going up in the future, because then it's not a sell pile. Then it's a hold pile, which I don't know why you're doing. You should only keep the cards that you want in your PC. Everything else should be selling to get the money out so that you then have a pile of cash to do your budget with, so that you can go buy the cards when you find them that you want. That was the problem that I had with the 39 Ted Williams. I found a card that I wanted, and so I needed to sell this card so I could get the cash back. And unfortunately, before I could sell the card, it got stolen. That's it. There's nothing else to it. That's the secret to collecting for decades and decades and decades. I've been doing this for 40 years. That's how I've done it for 40 years. I sell the cards that I have that I'm not keeping, and then I go buy the stuff that I want. Again, sometimes the timing doesn't work out, which is why I say always try to sell the cards when you can sell them, because then you have a cash reserve. So when you see the cards that you want, you're like, oh, I already have the money. You know, when I was buying the Doc Gooden Auto, again, for $20, I had already sold $50 worth of cards the week before. So I was like, oh yeah, that's why I overpaid for the Doc Gooden, because I was like, I don't care. I don't care. I already made $50. I want this card. I'm just buying it. I don't care. I'm not looking anymore. I'm not waiting. I don't know when this thing will come back on. I'm overbidding for it. I know that, but I did have my limit. I was like, I'm not going to pay more than $25 for this card, and I didn't. That was it. So I got it for like 23. Again, with the shipping and tax, it came to 28 total. So yeah, I paid $8 more with all the fees and everything else lumped in. But I had the money because I just sold cards for $50. So it was in the bank account. Boom, just buy the cards. That's what I hope that you guys start doing, is get the cash in, sell the cards, get the cash, go buy the cards that you want. You're not using any money that's not from the sale of your cards. All right, let's get to the next comment. Here we go. This is back to USA Cards, and this is my point. This is what I'm saying. So this is a quick one. I'm going to say this ahead of time. I appreciate the comment, USA Cards, but you really need to relax. So here we go. You're exhausting. I love it. I love it. I love it, right? I mean, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. All right, I'm from New York, so, you know, hopefully it's playful ribbing. I'm going to hope that he's just chirping. I'm hoping that. If he really means some of the stuff that he says, again, that's a negative person, and I hope that he gets some therapy because he needs some help. If he's just doing playful chirping online, I get it. I love it. Thank you, USA Cards, for being one of my biggest fans. So here we go. No More Shiny said, Doc, I got some cards I'd like your help selling. I signed the spreadsheet twice starting like a month ago. Haven't heard back. Are you able to help, or should I use another? All right. So here is a comment that really needs to be answered because apparently No More Shiny doesn't really understand what I was saying. So I'm going to explain it, and maybe nobody else understood what I was saying. Again, that's possible. You only know when somebody asks a question that your communication wasn't clear, so I'm going to go back over it. There are two spreadsheets. There are two Google Forms that I created. One is for buying cards and one is for selling cards. If you want to sell cards, now I don't know which card specifically he's talking about. There's been about 10 to 15 people that have filled out the I'm selling Google sheet. One person put down one card that they want to sell for $3,500. Here's the problem. The card's not worth $3,500. I don't know if No More Shiny gets that I can't help you sell cards if you're not in the ballpark of what cards are worth. So when I ask the question, because one of the questions on the Google form is, how much are you looking for? You have to be realistic about the card. And if you're not, then I'm not sure exactly how I can help you other than, did you really want to have a conversation about it? Now, I've also said DM me, which some people have. Again, you can go to X or IG, EDI Sports Cards, DM me and tell me, hey, I signed or I filled out the Google form. These are the cards that I put in. So when I look at it, I know who you are. And then you can say, this is my strategy. Can you help with X or Y? Mostly what I'm trying to do is just connect buyers and sellers. I'm not trying to sell your cards. I'm just trying to get you to a buyer. I built this channel. I didn't know exactly where it was going to go. I now have 2,000 subscribers. If you guys want to reach more buyers, please share these videos. Tell people to subscribe to the channel. The more people that watch, the more people that will buy your cards. And I understand that some of you are like, well, it's not fair because you have an audience, you can sell cards. I'm not trying to do this for myself. In fact, I have very little cards left to sell. In fact, most of the stuff that I have at this point is memorabilia. I have a lot of autographed bats. I sold like 1,000 autographed baseballs. This is going back a year ago. Actually, last November, I sold 1,000 autographed baseballs. Again, do you imagine what it's like to have 1,000? That's boxes and boxes and boxes of baseballs. What was I going to do with them all? So I was able to sell them to a dealer. He got them for an unbelievable price. To be honest with you, it was highway robbery what I got them for. But I didn't care because I wanted to get rid of a hoard. So I sold him all of my baseballs. All of them. He got them for a steal. The problem is that he's got to do PSA authentication. Okay, so that's off my hands. I don't have to worry about that. And then he has to sell the cards, or sell the balls. That's it. So he's got to do all the work. So he got a great deal from me. Again, a lot of you would be like, well, but you could have gotten more money and you could have waited and you could have, and those balls would have been worth more. Yes, 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 yes. But that's not what I was trying to do. I was trying to get rid of a hoard. And when you're trying to get rid of a hoard, sometimes you have to just get rid of the hoard. Hopefully you guys get that. I'm just trying to be honest with you. All right, here we go. Next comment. This one's a good one. And this is actually from Bargain Boxer, who have made several comments on the channel. Again, I appreciate it. So this is an interesting one. So here we go. Let's get into it. I went to the National this year, and you could tell that 90% of the people there were for the money. All right, 2 things I look for when I go to a show. 1, I'm looking for the right cards, and 2, I have to pay the right price. Well, that's probably a good idea if you're going to go to a card show. I'm actually the same way, Bargain Boxer. Absolutely. I'm looking for certain cards, and I'm only going to pay the right price. We'll get to the second piece of this. So I understand trying to get as much for your cards as possible, but when you see showcases overflowing with cards, then either no one wants those specific cards or the prices are too high. Bottom line, right cards, right price, even in this crap economy where people can't afford bread on the table, right cards, right price, cards sell. At a fundamental level, Bargain Boxer, you're absolutely correct. Whether we're in a down market, up market, cards do sell. This is a hobby. It's been around for 100 years, and it will be around for another at least 40 to 50 years. I don't know after that, because to be honest with you, the world is changing so quickly. I don't know. All of these cards may just become antiques, which then changes the nature of the hobby. The only way to keep the hobby going is to continue to get kids into the hobby, and the only way to do that is if cards get cheaper on the modern end. And that's not the trend right now. Right now, the only reason the hobby is afloat is because parents are willing to spend money on their kids' cards. I don't know if any of you really get that, but the only reason the hobby is still afloat is because parents are spending money on cards. So they have a choice. They can either spend it on Pokemon or they can spend it on sports cards. But when the money starts to run out and when parents have to make decisions as to, well, I don't have that much to spend on cards, that's when the market goes to the bottom. And the only thing that parents can buy is the retail stuff at Walmart and Target. And once that happens, one, the breakers are all done. Two, sports card shows will be smaller and less. There's going to be less shows because right now there's a ton of shows. So there's going to be contraction. And what I'm telling you is I'm going to be doing a video upcoming, within the next few weeks as to where the market's going, looking ahead end of 2024 into 2025. And when you see the data, when you start to see what's happening, again, you have to look at the data. When you see what's starting to happen, you're starting to understand what I've been talking about for the last few months. The market is going to go down even more than it's gone down before. Now, it's not going to crash to zero, and maybe I haven't been clear on my communication. When I say it's going to crash, I don't mean crash to zero. What I mean is it's not going to be where it is right now. You should sell your cards now. So for the guy that was saying, well, it's comping between 9 and 1,000 and should I take 800? Yeah, I would negotiate up as much as you can. If you could get 850, sell it. Because in 2025, it's not going to be worth that. It's just not going to be worth that. There's too many cards in the market. There's too much competition. As this guy is saying, again, clearly, but I don't think he understands exactly what he said. There's so many cards. It's got nothing to do with, that nobody wants it. It's just there's not enough demand anymore for all of these cards. They've just overprinted them. They overprinted. There's too much. There's also too much vintage. There's just too much. There's so many cards. There's millions and millions and millions of cards. That's what you guys need to understand. That's it. That's the bottom line. There's so much supply and not enough demand, so prices have to come down. Now, the only reason the prices are not coming down is because people are being stubborn and they don't want to sell the cards. That's it. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't actually want to sell the cards. They just don't want to sell them for what the market is saying they're worth now. Again, I understand it. There's sunk costs. Again, you can go to Alex Hormozi, you can go to any of the big YouTube influencers on finance and understand what sunk costs mean. But when you buy a card for 400 and no one will give you 400, you've lost money. And if the card's only worth 200, you're only going to get 180. So you've lost a ton of money. You've lost 50% of your profit. That's it. That's the way it goes. I don't know what else to tell you. The question you have to ask yourself is this a PC card or is this a sell card? If it's a sell card, sell it now so that it doesn't go down even more. And then you're really desperate going, I can only get 100 now? Like I could have gotten 180. Don't play the regret game. Don't do that. Sell your cards. Sell them now. If you can sell them, sell them. I sold a case, okay? So this was a 1991 Platinum Pro Set case. Okay, this was a Brett Favre rookie year. So it had Barry Sanders, Troy Aikman, like I said, Brett Favre. How much was the case worth? So one case had 2 half cases in it. Each half case was worth around $150 to $200. Again, depending on when you looked. Okay, so $150 to $200 depending on when you looked. When I sold the case, they were going for around $150 each half case. So there's 2 half cases in a case. So that means that it's worth $300. You know what I sold the case for? $180. That's it. So the guy got 1 half case for what it's worth and the other half case for $30. You know how much he sold it for the next day? He sold the half case for $160. End of story. He now had a half case that he could just make profit on. He basically made all of his money back in one day. And the reason that I sold it is because it was an entire case. It was heavy and I didn't want to bring it home. Like I said, I was liquidating. I was getting rid of stuff. I was getting rid of a hoard. And sometimes some of you need to understand that retail means liquidation. If you're holding on to stuff for a year or 2 years, you need to liquidate it. If it's not part of your PC, sell it. Okay, all of these cards, it's part of a liquidation. I'm just trying to sell them. That's it. So the question becomes from you, well, what are all of these worth? When you go to a card show, that's what you have to know. What are the cards that I want? And if you have a list of cards, so I did that, went to a card show. This is the list of cards, okay? So I had a list and I'm like, okay, what am I gonna, and I picked out, I did a whole thing with a dealer who I know. So I picked out like 15 or 20 cards and I said, I'm gonna give you $100. Actually, it was 15 cards. I'm gonna give you $100 for 15 cards. And he looked at it and he was like, he pulled one card out because it was worth $40. And he was like, I can give you the 15 for 100, but I need this card. I was like, all right, fine. So you pulled one out for 40. Okay, fine. What were the cards worth? They were worth more than $100. They were worth $170. Now, if I had gotten the one that was $40, I would have gotten $200 worth of stuff for $100. That's a great deal for me. And it was just too much for him. He was like, look, I'll give you $170 worth of cards for $100. That's fine. That's fine. Again, when you build a relationship with a dealer, you could kind of get away with those things. That's my point. All right, let's get to the next comment. And this is the last comment. All right, so here we go. This is from AI. Here we go. AI. Yes, please do a video about being a dealer. How much you sold, what kind of cards that sold, how much you make minus the table fees. What does the card show market look like? Busy or slow? Are people buying high-end cards or low-end cards? That will be a great video to watch. All right, so this is a much harder video to create for you guys to produce than I thought. I thought I was going to be able to do it very easily. No, wow, I mean, because I started doing the research, I started writing the script, I started putting together B-roll and all the video stuff, and I went, wow, this doesn't make any sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer the questions, and maybe I'll be able to put together a video for you. Again, I'm doing all of this by myself. I do not have a team. If I had a team, I think I could probably produce much better videos, but I don't make any money off of this YouTube channel. Yes, I'm monetized, but I don't make any money. Like, pretty much I make about $5 to $10 per video. So you guys do the math. That's it. So, and I'm only doing really one video a week. So that's it. I'm making like $5 to $10 a week on YouTube. I only have 2,000 subscribers. I don't have a lot of people. I'm not sponsored. So I'm not making money from this channel. I'm literally doing this because I like talking about sports and sports cards, and I like making videos for you guys. That's it. If you appreciate that, hit the like button and share this video. So here we go. Let's get to the first piece of this comment. So how much did you sell? All right. So there's two ways to look at this. So there's product, how much did you sell in terms of volume of product, and then how much money you actually made. That's net revenue or gross, money, like how much you actually collected. So in terms of product, I sold about 80% of what I brought to the show. Now, the show was a 3-day show. It was the Arizona State Card Show. This was last November, so a year ago. There's a show coming up November 8, 9, and 10 at the Phoenix Convention Center. I highly recommend, if you're in the area, go to that show. It's a great show. But this was last year. So I brought a ton of stuff and I sold about 80% of what I brought. Like I said, one of the things was a case that had 2 half cases, 91 Pro Set Platinum. That was the Brett Favre rookie card. That card goes for raw, it goes for about $25 each. PSA 10 goes for around $60, $65. Again, not really expensive, but that's what the cards go for. You also have a ton of other players in that. Like I said, Barry Sanders, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith. I mean, you got a ton of players from that era in that set. Anyway, sold 80%. Total amount that I got revenue-wise, this is not profit. So again, when you deal with your taxes, you have to do profit. And most of this was long-term. So this was actually capital gains if I do it correctly in terms of, how much tax you should pay, because I had held this stuff for a very long time. Again, like I said, I'm a hoarder. All of this stuff is from the 90s, from the 80s. So I was selling stuff that I had held for a very long time. So all of the profit that I actually made was long-term capital gains. Therefore, the tax rate is lower. All right. So anyway, the top line number of how much cash I got was around $5,000. Now, that's probably the best show I've ever done, literally ever in my entire sport dealing career. I've never had a show that was more than $5,000. Now, again, what the exact number was, I don't remember. It's a year ago. I don't remember. I've already done the taxes. I've already done all that stuff, just so everybody knows. Already put it in. I don't remember how much it was exactly, but it was around $5,000. I know that because I was like, wow, this is the best show I've ever done. So for anybody that's ever wanted to be a dealer, Arizona State Card Show is really good. And I know dealers who do that show who make way more than $5,000 from that show. They make like 10, 20, 30. I know a couple dealers that make like $50,000 from that one show. It's that good. Anyway, how much do the tables cost? Well, table costs are going up. All the shows' table costs are going up. My understanding is that a table at the Burbank show is around $400 to $500. That's just one table. You get a discount if you buy 2. So for here, the Arizona State show, the tables are around $300. You get a discount if you buy more than 1. So I paid around $250 for the table. I had 2 tables, so that was $500. So take that off of the $5,000. I'm already down to $450. Then you also have parking because it's in downtown Phoenix, and so that's $15 a day. So you add that up, that's $45. So that's another $50 right off the top, and that's it. I mean, and then you also that's it. That's all the costs. So there you go. I mean, that's what you have to figure out. So what you want to do when you're looking and analyzing for a show is you really need to look at what the volume of attendance is. That's really what it determines if it's worth it. So is it worth to pay $400 to $500 for one table at the Burbank show? Yes. Why? Because I think around 10,000 people go to that show. The Arizona State show is similar. Now, the attendance is not as big for fall. So November is fall league in Arizona. So there's around 5,000 to 6,000 people that go to that show. It is the largest show in Arizona. In the spring, there's a March show during spring training. So there's basically that week in spring training, there's a show in Phoenix, Arizona, the Arizona State Card Show. That one gets between 8,000 to 10,000 attendees because all the people come in for spring training and they're like, what are we going to do this weekend? Oh, let's go to a card show. They bring the family. I mean, it's huge. A ton of people go. Now, I've only done that show once and it was unreal. It didn't have enough stuff. I sold out of everything that I had except for a couple things, but basically I sold out, and the problem is I just didn't have enough. I couldn't bring enough stuff. So I only made like 4,000 at that show, but that's because I just didn't have room to pack it in the car and bring it to the show. So that was my own limitation, but that show was nuts. I was selling literally from the time it opened to the time it closed. So again, you have to look at, is it worth it or not? Now, there are smaller shows where, especially in my area, where the tables are $60 each. If you buy two, it's like $50 each, so it's $100 for two. And the problem for me is that most small shows, and so here's gets to the question, what are people buying? What's moving, what's not moving? If you really want to understand the hobby, it's all about modern. It's always been that way. It will always be that way. When you go to a card show, you go to a small show, it's all about modern cards because that's what kids watch. They watch television. They watch sports. They watch the athletes that are playing. So they don't know anything about the older athletes unless their parents or somebody they know talks about older athletes. And to be quite honest with you, no one does that anymore. No one talks to children. So I know I had a comment from somebody who said, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That's because he's in education and education sucks. Yeah, I agree with you. Public education system does suck, but I'm not one of those sucky people. I'm actually trying to fix it. So I don't know where you're coming from. Problem is that no one talks to children. No one tells children about anything. No one tells them about history. No one tells them about older players. No one has a dialogue with kids. Kids are out there being told what to do. Go here, go there, don't talk, don't do this, don't do that. Or the kids are just out there with money from their parents and they can do whatever they want, including steal stuff, which is what's happening at card shows from coast to coast, is kids are now stealing other people's cards. I went to this show here in Arizona. Again, it was a smaller show, but I went to a show here and every single dealer now has a camera watching their cards because kids are stealing cards. And the only reason kids are stealing cards is because there's no parents. None. And parents are clueless. If you're a parent, you're clueless. You have no idea what you're doing. So, whatever. Anyway, let's get back to it. So, modern is what's selling. Modern is always what's selling. You need to be aware of that if you're buying cards. If you're buying cards for your PC, buy what you want. If you're buying cards to sell cards, thinking in the future they're going to be worth more money, be careful, because modern cards are going to be replaced by new modern cards, not those modern cards. And the cards that you're buying now are probably not going to be worth what you think they're worth in the future. So if you're buying all the LeBron James, guess what? LeBron James is on the way out. Not only that, but LeBron James has hurt his reputation. He finally got the controversy that he never wanted. One, he's a friend of Diddy. Oops. He went to those Diddy parties. He did some stuff that he shouldn't have done, and it's probably on video. And two, he just endorsed Kamala Harris and the Democrats, who just lost by a landslide. No one likes LeBron James anymore. So everybody that has LeBron James cards should be worried. I would sell them now. Do not wait, and if they get to be worth more money, hey, more power to the people that bought them. But you should cash out now on LeBron James. That's my opinion. Again, just my opinion. But I think not the guy to hold on to. If you're going to hold on to a player, absolutely. Patrick Mahomes is the guy to hold on to. Why? Because his career's not over, and who knows how many more Super Bowls he's going to win. But the multiple for how much his cards are going to be worth more in the future is not what you think it's going to be. He's not going to go 3, 4, 5x. It's not happening. There's too many cards. We don't have the same issue with the mantles. Mantle, PSA 10, there's 3. There's one 9.5 SGC. That's it. The SGC 8, the PSA 8, is not going for $1 million. Folks, you have to start living in reality. These cards are not worth as much as you think they're worth. They're not. That's it. That's all that it is. You just need to understand. There's some rarefied cards. They're a handful. I did a whole video. How many cards sold for more than $1 million? You should go watch it. I tell you how many cards actually sold for more than $1 million. It's not that many. You may think oh no, there's a ton of cards that sold for $1 million. No, there aren't. You need to hear that. Therefore, if there aren't a lot of cards that are selling for $1 million or more, your cards are kind of stuck. No Jordan has sold for $1 million. The PSA 10 is worth around, right now, it's worth around $140,000. I personally think it's only going to be worth around $100 to $120,000, personally, in the future. That's my personal opinion. But what's it selling for right now? It's about $140,000. That's what it's selling for. Now, do some people pay more? Of course. Of course people pay more than what it's worth. I mean, it doesn't mean that they're a sucker. It doesn't mean I think they're suckers. Like, I don't know why you would do that. Just go to a card show and you could get it for less. See, that's my point. If they're so rare, then yes, overpay. If that's the card you want, you have to overpay for the SGC 9.5 Mickey Mantle. You have to. Even though I think it's only worth $10 million, if you want that card, there's only one. Like, if you want the one where the slab says the best card ever, then if you want to own that, you got to pay up. So will someone pay $12.6 million again for that card? I mean, there's a good chance that they will. I can't see why anyone would pay more for that card, because again, I only think it's worth $10 million. But then again, people with that kind of money to waste, maybe they don't care. It's just about status. That's why people pay for Rolex watches. You could buy a better watch, but it's a status symbol. So is that mantle a status symbol? Yes. So will someone pay more than 12.6? There's a possibility. It's a possibility. I'm not saying that it will, but there's a chance. Again, if anybody were asking me, I'd be like, no, don't spend 12.6 million, or don't spend more than that. I think that's the ceiling, like literally. If you're going to spend that kind of money, don't spend more than 12.6. Like, I'm like, why would you do that? You're just throwing money away. You're not going to make that back. Again, I think the person that spent 12.6 is not making that back. I don't. I think it's worth 10 million. So, I think realistically, if you paid 11, I think that's reasonable. The problem is now the person who bought it for 12.6 is not really not going to like that. Be like, well, I just lost 1.6 million. Well, yeah, because you overpaid for the card. It is what it is. All right. I want to thank everybody for joining me this week. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Make your comments. Let me see what you got going on. Remember, you can fill out the Google Forms, whether you want to sell, whether you want to buy. Tell me how much you think this pack of cards is worth. Again, the 10 cards, what do you think they're worth? And I'll see you next week. This is Doc saying, have a great weekend. One show. There's only one show I want to watch.